Hook. Imagine standing on your front lawn at 2 in the morning, barefoot, clutching your children's hands, while you watch the flames devour everything you've worked for. Imagine the gut-wrenching smell of smoke, the roar of fire, and the crushing knowledge that you're home. The place filled with your memories, laughter, and safety will never exist again. And then, imagine discovering that the person responsible was the very neighbor who had smiled at you in daylight, sat across from you in HOA meetings, and demanded that your grass never grow half an inch too long. This is not just about a fire. This is about betrayal, rage, and justice. Because the same woman who lit the match thought she would walk away unscathed. But 1 week later, she walked straight into my courtroom. Stay with me, because this story doesn't just burn with destruction. It ends with redemption, courage, and a lesson about never underestimating someone who has lost everything, but refuses to stay down. I had always known Karen was difficult. She was the self-proclaimed queen of our homeowners association. The type of neighbor who measured lawns with a ruler, sent angry letters if a trash can was left out for more than 2 hours, and knocked on doors just to complain about the sound of kids playing in the street. To be honest, I thought she was just an annoyance. A petty tyrant who got a sense of power by controlling others. I never imagined she could be dangerous. The night of the fire started like any other. I tucked my kids into bed, kissed my wife goodnight, and went to sleep with a sense of calm that only comes when life feels secure. But security is a fragile illusion. At 2 a.m., the smoke alarm pierced through the silence like a scream. At first, I thought it was a false alarm, maybe a dying battery. But then I smelled it. The thick, acrid smoke curling under the bedroom door. "Get up, get the kids," I shouted to my wife. Panic surged through me like a tidal wave. We grabbed what we could. Our children, a blanket, nothing more, and bolted outside. The night was ablaze. My house was engulfed in orange flames, windows shattering from the heat, wood cracking and collapsing. My kids sobbed, clinging to me, their faces lit by the inferno that had once been our home. The fire trucks came too late. By the time the blaze was controlled, everything was gone. Our family photos, my late father's watch, my wife's wedding dress, the baby's crib. All reduced to ash. Neighbors gathered, whispering, some offering blankets, others just watching. And among them, standing across the street with folded arms and an eerie calm, was Karen. Something about the way she looked at the fire sent a chill down my spine. While everyone else showed shock or sorrow, her expression was almost satisfied. The investigators ruled it arson. My heart sank. Who would do this? Why us? Then the evidence started trickling in, a gas can tossed carelessly in the bushes near my fence, a trail that led straight to Karen's yard. The security camera from another neighbor showed her creeping near my driveway that night. It felt unreal. Like the villain in my life story had finally torn off her mask. But there was no time to process grief. Within days, the police had her in custody. I thought justice would move quickly, that she'd be gone, out of our lives forever. What I didn't expect was that fate had a cruel twist waiting for me, because 1 week later, when I stepped into court, not as a grieving victim, but as an attorney ready to fight, I looked up and saw her walk in, wearing that same smug expression. Yes, I'm an attorney. And while I never wanted to mix my personal tragedy with my profession, life had other plans. When the prosecutor asked if I wanted to assist with the case, I didn't hesitate. This wasn't just about legal procedure. This was personal. This was about standing up for my family, my kids, and for every homeowner who had ever been terrorized by a person like her. Walking into that courtroom, I carried not just evidence but fury. Controlled, precise fury. Karen sat there in her neatly pressed blouse, acting as though this was all a misunderstanding. She even had the audacity to wink at me, as if to say, "You won't beat me." But she underestimated something. I had nothing left to lose. The case unfolded with brutal clarity. The investigators testified about the gas can, the accelerant found in her garage, and the security footage that sealed her fate. Witness after witness spoke about her threats, her obsessive behavior, the way she had targeted my family for months over trivial violations. Every piece painted her as not just unreasonable, but dangerous. At one point, her attorney tried to argue that she had been harassed by me and the HOA board, that she was simply misunderstood. That was the moment I stood and delivered the hardest truth of my life. I described what it felt like to hold my crying children as our home turned to ash. I told the jury about the nights we spent in a cramped motel room afterward, my kids asking when we could go home, and me having no answer. I looked Karen in the eyes and said, "You didn't just burn wood and brick. You burned my children's sense of safety. You tried to take away their belief that home is where they're safe. But here's the thing. You failed. Because even without walls, even without a roof, my family is stronger than your hatred. And today, justice will prove it." The courtroom was silent. Even Karen, who always had something to say, lowered her eyes. The verdict came swiftly guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to years behind bars. Her reign of terror finally ended. But the real victory wasn't the verdict. It was walking out of that courtroom with my kids, holding their hands, knowing they saw their father fight for them and win. It was knowing that no matter how much was lost in the fire, we still had each other. And no one, not even a bitter neighbor with a grudge, could take that away. Closing message: life has a way of testing us with fire, sometimes literal, sometimes metaphorical. But here's what I've learned: even when everything you own is reduced to ashes, your strength, your love, and your determination can never be burned away. So if you're listening to this, facing your own battles, remember this: the people who try to destroy you may succeed in taking things, but they cannot break you, unless you let them. And sometimes, the most powerful justice is simply standing back up, looking your enemy in the eye, and saying, "You didn't win."